This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 135 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by Omega Fields, the world's best omega-3 supplements for horses. Horsemanship Radio is a part of the family of the Horse Radio Network, and today we have two guests who serve people and horses, making healthier relationships. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to the Horsemanship Radio. Thanks for joining us. Horsemanship Radio airs on the 1st and the 15th of the month, and I have my trusty producer, Jen, here with me today. Thank God.
It's nice to know that I'm trusty. I like that.
And so needed. So needed. Could not do this without you.
Could not do this.
Oh,
I
my
wouldn't
gosh.
want you to. I enjoy doing the show.
Good. Good. I'm glad. Well, you're going to enjoy a couple of people we have on today. Really different worlds, kind of self-help world and then horse help world. No, he's a vet, a veterinarian. And they really do come from different worlds. One young, one is in the waning career right now. He's still working at it part-time because he loves it, but probably, should be fishing somewhere if he really had his druthers, but he loves his horses.
It's interesting how so many people whose careers are within the horse industry end up that way. They never really retire.
Yeah, I know. I love it. I mean, it is a nice statement about the industry, isn't it?
Well, that saying about nobody gets into horses because they want to make a fortune.
Okay, there's that too.
Yeah. Well, and it's true.
Can't get out of it.
Yeah. Some people make a very comfortable living. Yes. Mm-hmm. But I think the vast majority of people really do get into the horse business and at least stay in the horse business. You stay in the horse business because you're passionate about it.
And they really are good for us. I think, I don't know if that's an endorphin thing or it's just a lovely place to be when you're with horses, but it doesn't matter. It's both. And I think that's what people would say, how could I ever see myself without horses in my life? I can't picture it, which is really cool. Hopefully we keep people that way. We keep people in our industry. And I think these people are actually making that happen. That's what I love about these two guests is Devin, who you will hear from. Devin is really creating an environment that just pulls people into that vortex because they're looking for that element. And then Chris is just out there banging for us, making sure that horses have a fair shake and that he's an advocate for them. He's a voice for them. And he's also keeping them healthier for us in environments that can be stressful. So you'll have to hear how he does that.
Yeah, it's really cool. They are both advocating for horses in our lives within the horse community and also from bringing people from outside the horse community in, which is so key. So let's get to it. Going to enjoy our two guests right after we hear from our title sponsors, Omega Fields.
Hi, Joe Camp here to share about Omega Fields. Omega Fields exists to help you keep your first promise to the horses you love, to care for them well. Nutrition is the foundation of a healthy life and supports all the activity that brings you and your horse so much joy. Omega-3s from flax are the cornerstone of that foundation. So, coupled with the finest ingredients in their proprietary Pure Glean flax stabilization process, they created Omega Horse Complete, Omega Nibblers, low sugar and starch, Omega Antioxidant, and Proventum Probiotic soft treats. Thousands of horses are experiencing a vibrant life with the help of Omega Fields products, including all of ours, a part of helping you keep your promise to your friends. Nutrition for a healthy life isn't just their slogan, it's their purpose.
Devin Combs, horse listener and certified equine gestalt coach, is a long-respected horsewoman, a former competitive 3-day eventer, a United States Pony Club alumnus, and Outward Bound instructor course graduate. Devin is published in Speaking Your Truth, Courageous Stories from Inspiring Women, and a speaker about positive body image and eating disorder recovery. Devin's experienced horsemanship skills, combined with the Gestalt method and life coaching, assist her clients in uncovering their aha moments to take beyond the arena and into their daily lives. Well, welcome, Devin Combs. I think this might be the first time I've had an equine Gestalt coach on the radio. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing very well here in Colorado, looking outside at some snow.
Oh, so yeah, you still got snow on the ground. For us in California and Florida, my producer's in Florida, we haven't seen any of that this winter, but we've been hearing a lot about you guys. I thought this would be the time when you'd go to Arizona, maybe for one of your retreats.
I just got back, Debbie. I wish I would have stayed another week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still in winter weather here.
Yeah, we're talking mid-April here now, too. So that's crazy. Well, I love what you said on your website. People should Google around a little bit to find out your background. But we know a little bit about your horsey background. But I love this comment that I read that you said, I help women find clarity and purpose through the healing power of horses. I mean, I just want to go, through that. But I want you to explain a little bit about that for us. We know you're a coach. Tell us how you place that for us.
Yeah. So, and the fact you took a deep breath happens often when women are working with horses with me at these retreats. So a little bit of my background, I grew up with horses and was showing and pony club and eventing was my real passion, but very much in the competitive spirit of horses and a lot of doing with horses. And in my later high school years, I had an eating disorder and struggled with depression and tried various different therapies, and nothing really worked. I was very much stuck in my head, very much trying to control everything and project this image of perfection. And it really was only when I was at the barn hanging out after the shows or just being with my horse that I truly felt at peace. And I was sent to a treatment center in Arizona that was specific for women with eating disorders. And I experienced equine therapy for the first time.
Right.
And Debbie, I'll never forget it. It was life-changing. We showed up at the therapy ranch, and I looked around, and there were no bridles, no saddles, just a round pen with a horse.
Yeah.
And I volunteered to go in the round pen and be with this horse. And the therapist said, you need to go connect with this horse, Jack. So I walked right up to him, just in my confident horsewoman persona, and Jack walked away from me. Literally turned his butt, walked as far away as he could. And in that moment, I felt fear. I felt rejection. I felt embarrassed. All these people were watching, and here I was looking like an amateur.
Yeah.
And the therapist at the time, she said, Devin, you need to stop. Stop overthinking this. Stop trying. You need to simply be and breathe. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was so disconnected from my body. And it was really when I was breathing and present, and I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden, all these emotions started to come up that for the first time in my 21 years at that point, I couldn't stop. It was like a wall came down. And through numbing all my emotions out, I had numbed out my joy, and I had numbed out everything, including my sadness, through my behaviors with food. But the moment I got quiet, started to become emotional, Jack turned his head, looked at me, walked right over to me from the far end of the round pen, put his nose right in my chest, and did not move. And that horse in that moment confirmed kind of the opposite of what I'd been thinking, that if people saw who I really was, kind of the mess behind the mask I was wearing, that they would run away. And that horse proved to me just the opposite. When I was being authentic and true to myself, that's when he wanted to connect. And it was the light bulb went off. This is what I want to help other people experience.
Oh, I bet. And in that moment, why did you think that Jack wanted you to live in the present? Why does a horse want us to live in the present moment?
They want us to be congruent. And they want us to be present, because when we're stuck in our head, we're usually thinking about the past or the future. We're anxious about what could happen, or we're worried and upset about what did happen in the past. So we're not present. We're checked out. And when we're checked out, we're in our head and not in our body. And when we're not in our body, horses connect to us when we're breathing, when we're connected, when we're congruent, meaning what we're communicating through our body language is truly how we're feeling, that we're being honest. That's when they want to be with us, because that's safe. That's a safe energy. And I believe they love us to be in the present, because that's when they feel safe. And when they feel safe is when they want to connect.
Yeah. That is very cool that you found that. Did you find that people had run away from you just for being you before, or did you ever let people experience that from you?
Yeah, it's a great question. More the latter. It was a story I told myself that if I wasn't perfect, then I wasn't good enough. And it was really growing up in a setting where we didn't show emotions. My family, we put on the happy face all the time, but really suppressed how we were feeling if it was anything other than happy and upbeat and perfect. So I learned to shut off a lot of the other emotions. And it wasn't the sharing my emotions that really hurt me. It was the suppressing of them. And it was through the horse that I really felt safe to share who I was.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do want us to be honest, even in discipline, they just want us to know what we want them to do, even in training, I think, even at high performance levels, don't you think?
100%. Yes. To be honest and clear and no mixed messages. And I think the more we're clear with ourselves and acknowledging how we're feeling in any given moment and really have an emotional intelligence about what's going on with us, the more we can navigate that and the more clear the horse is on who we are and how we're showing up.
Exactly. So there's a lot of people, it sounds like, suffering from anxiety and depression and maybe even eating disorders, especially young women. Why do you think that is?
I think there's a lot of pressure to be a certain way. A lot of women that come to me, whether it's for an eating disorder or more in general for my women's retreats, it's women that are unhappy and they feel stuck. Whether that be stuck in a dead-end job, whether that be stuck in a relationship that doesn't fulfill them, whether that be stuck in a lifestyle that doesn't align with who they are, they feel stuck. And their emotions, they're not honoring who they are. So they're not letting themselves feel. And they're trying to fit into a mold of who they think they should be versus who they truly are. So they come to these retreats to really get clear on who they are. What's their intuition trying to say?
So is that your job, or is that the horses? How do the horses help that, their feeling of stuckness? Yeah.
Well, horses can tell when we're stuck, because usually, like I was, very much in my head, very disconnected. So often if somebody's stuck, I'll see a horse in a round pen and they won't physically want to connect or be very close. I've seen other horses walk up right behind somebody who's telling a story about something. Maybe it's the same story they've been telling about how unhappy they are in their job. And the horse go nudge them, literally, to take a step forward and get out of their own way and get out of their head. I've seen some very comical things through horses. Recently at a retreat, I had a client who was sitting bareback on this big, beautiful draft horse. And I had the draft horse with a lead rope and halter. And I was asking this woman her dream. And her dream was she wanted to work more with horses and create a healing center. But every time she would say why she couldn't do it or what was keeping her from it, this mare would either park her hind rear end, cock her hip, or take it back. Every time this woman took a deep breath, dropped out of her head, below her neck, down into her body, down into her heart and her gut, spoke from that place of what really was true for her and what she truly wanted, the mare would take a step forward.
Interesting.
So the horse was feeling the energy, not necessarily understanding the words, but feeling the energy of what she was saying.
So I love that you use nothing but a round pin too. And is there a reason why not a square pin?
That's good question. I think there's a lot of symbolism to a circle.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of corners that we have to turn, I think a circle, like how everybody sits in a retreat, we start in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it has more movement in it,
I agree.
especially a feminine energy. Where square, there's more lines and linear.
Mm-hmm.
And really our journey of self-discovery and our relationship with ourselves and horses, I feel it's more circular energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
grew up training horses in a round pen. I guess I've just kept to that. Now it's a healing work too.
Yeah, now it's healing work. So 30 years ago, you're not old enough to know this, but 30 years ago, people were critical of why a round pin. It was like, that's ooey, that's silly. It doesn't make any sense because arenas were square. Everybody knew that, or a rectangle, But now I think people are starting to feel it, but I don't know if they actually vocalize it. I don't know if they actually have figured it all out. I know the horses did, because horses can find a corner, if they are in flight, and that just stops down that whole energy of getting them to process the whole trust and communication thing. It actually provides that ability to work through that whole intention and communication thing. Anyway, I could get deep here, but do you think people that are around horses a lot can still gain insights that they're not recognizing right now with horses by getting into a program?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of women that come to my retreats have horses at home, and they're looking to deepen the bond with their own horse.
Okay. Yeah.
And I by no means call myself a horse whisperer, but I do like the term horse listener.
I do too.
That really resonates.
Good for you.
Yeah, and I'm teaching women how to quiet their mind, get out of the thoughts that are controlling them and controlling the direction of their lives. Once they quiet their mind and really tune into what they're feeling and their intuition, I think that's when we can hear what horses are trying to communicate to us and not get so stuck in the thoughts and the practical and the analytical, but really feel into it, hear what the horse's messages are through how the horse is showing up for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I recommend for ladies at home, ladies and gentlemen that have horses at home, so much of the time we're out doing things with our horse. We're mucking, we're grooming, we're feeding. But 1 out of every 4 of those times that you're with your horse, to go out and make it a non-agenda time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Where you're either taking a chair and sitting out by the pasture, you're hanging with them, you're being with them. And that really deepens the bond with your horse when it's not always about doing, when you can be more like the horse and be in the being role with them. Right.
You might practice that with your dog and your kids and your husband too.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Not always about action. Sometimes just about, quiet, soft connection with nothing involved.
No agenda. I think that's a wonderful way to live at least a part of our lives, even for those people who are feeling super fast-paced and, overwhelmed a little bit, rather than that time taken away from your schedule. It actually, I think, adds to your time. Somehow that bandwidth sort of expands when you do little tricks like that for yourself. This is fascinating. So where do people find your retreats now, Devin?
BeyondTheArena.com.
Okay. And in what states are you having those retreats these days?
Right now, Arizona and Colorado.
Okay. Sounds fun. Who wouldn't want to do that? I mean, my goodness. Especially Arizona in the winter. It's beautiful.
No kidding. Yeah. And you need no horse experience to attend. I've got women who come, have a love of horses, but maybe haven't been with horses in 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Can you help them with the fear thing too? Because that happens. We start to feel mortal past, I don't know what it is, 40 or something, I guess. And can you get people through fears, build some confidence out there too? Or is that part of your plan?
Yeah, that's definitely, that goes hand in hand with the emotional work. And I find that fear usually is showing up big time in other areas of their life. So confidence is a skill. So it's a process. But once they come out and they acknowledge their fear and they can talk about it, that's when we can start to work through it. It's when people deny their fear that they can get into trouble. So
that depression stuff that you were talking about. Yeah, we have a function coming up, an event that it's our second annual called The Movement, and it is to bring those unique qualities of horses into our lives. And I, want to securely have horses in our lives too. The big picture is just to keep horses in our lives, because I believe so much in all the attributes that they have, the qualities that help us heal or help us excel, lots of things, right? And one speaker this year his name is Dave Mokel, and he teaches on mindfulness and being present. And mindfulness is such a big, ooey word these days, but how do you define mindfulness?
I would say there's a lot of terms, but I know this is one that's thrown out a lot, but it is being in the moment, and it's awareness. Awareness is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think so.
So today I was going out to feed my horses, and I noticed, being mindful, the snow and how it looked on this beautiful tree I've never paid attention to before. Mm-hmm. And it was because I wasn't in a rush. I wasn't looking at my watch, that I could be more mindful. Yeah. I think it's, quieting the rat race and kind of the hamster wheel of our mind, and really being fully aware of what's going on.
Nailed it.
Yeah, there's a great exercise for folks with horses that I do at the retreats. If you stand with your horse and you take 3 minutes and you say aloud, I notice myself, and you pay attention. I notice myself breathing heavy. I notice my heart beating fast. I notice my shoulders tight. And this is standing across from your horse. You're just holding him on a lead rope and halter. And then you switch it to, I notice my horses softening their eyes, lowering their head. Then you go right back to you. I notice I am taking deeper breaths, feeling more grounded. I notice my horse has cocked their hip, licking and chewing. It's a mindfulness exercise that takes 3 minutes and really helps you get grounded and in the moment with a horse.
Great tip. Great tip. Thank you. I want to go play now.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, Devin, thank you. I'd love to have you again too when you've got something, a new event coming up or something. I'd love to hear more about it. I think people love this whole exercise, and they love what horses do for the inside of us. So thanks for being here on Horsemanship Radio.
Thank you so much, Debbie.
Cavallo horse and rider Carol and Greg Giles, too, have been longtime supporters of the Horsemanship Radio, and we thought, what better way to show how their support goes than through the people who buy their boots. So we have this from Brenna Eldridge on a Facebook post. I could not be happier with my decision to transition my horse to barefoot and choosing Cavallo for his hoof protection. I always thought my horse just had bad feet and that he would always be lame barefoot until I realized that I was enabling that dependency. By allowing his feet to adapt back to the way that they were naturally intended, his feet have become strong and he now seems perfectly comfortable barefoot. With the added weight of a rider on rough terrain, I invested in my first pair of Cavallo boots. I went with the Trek boots, and they fit him perfectly. I was able to do anything that I could do in metal shoes, and I have no longer stress over him losing a metal shoe and damaging his hoof when removed. The Cavallo boots have provided him greater shock absorbencies when riding on hard ground, and so far, whether it be on trails or in the arena, he seems extremely comfortable in his boots. I do a variety of riding, including trails, gaming, and drill, and I'm excited to get into the gaming season to put truly those boots to test. I believe that in horsemanship, you have to pick methods that make the most sense to you. And for me, that is the naturality of barefoot and the protection of the Cavallo boots. Brenna. Chris Lesbines fell in love with horses at a young age and never lost that appreciation for them, even during successful executive careers in the automobile industry and in the software industry. He decided to go back to school for a second career as a veterinarian in his 40s. I wish we had more passionate horse advocates like Chris in our industry. Well, welcome, Chris Lesbines. It's so good to have a veterinary on the show. It's good to have a guy on the show. It's been a while. It's good to talk to you. How are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm just fine today. It's having a good day.
Oh, good, good. Well, it's great to get an experienced vet on from the race world who also happens to love his horses. And I want to tell the listeners a little bit about your horsey background because you have a fascinating story, which is part of the reason I wanted to have you on. Have you always been into horses, Chris?
Certainly, yes. As far back as I can remember, I had a fascination and a keen interest with horses. My only real early exposure to horses was watching The Lone Ranger on Saturday mornings and watching Randolph Scott Westerns. I was enthralled with Randolph Scott's horse.
See his horse, course, not him so much. That's cool. Yeah.
A funny story is for years I thought the horse was gray with a white mane because I watched the horse on the black and white TV.
Oh, right.
Finally, I saw a color movie. I saw the movie in color and realized he was a blonde sorrel.
Oh, you say sorrel. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you say that word, by the way?
Oh, I say sorrel. I think different people say it different ways, though. Yeah, like so many things with the horse world, too. Yeah.
That's not my wheelhouse. So.
Oh, that's okay. You have other wheelhouses, so that's what we want to hear about, too. So how did you actually meet with real horses, not ones on the black and white TV?
That's a great question. My first real encounter with a horse was in my senior year of high school. A family friend took me out to her hunter jumper barn and gave me a walk trot canter lesson on a school horse, and it was such a great experience. I was so exhilarated to be up. I felt like I was flying through space and time, and that event turned out to be a real defining moment in my career. I knew from that moment on that somehow I'd be involved with horses, and it reminded me of a quote that I read in Wendy Williams' book, The Horse, and I'll quote it just for you. It says, "The steady thunder of horse hooves echoes deep within the human soul." And I thought back to that experience, and I thought that event truly brought the deep echoes to the surface for me.
Very beautiful.
That point on, I was destined to be involved with horses in one aspect or another. The only problem was financial. My parents were hardworking musicians and music educators, and they certainly couldn't afford all that would be necessary to make me an equestrian.
So how did you do it? Did you muck stalls? Did you earn your way through it?
When I was thinking about this answer, I thought, why didn't I muck stalls? Why didn't
really?
But I kind of pushed the pause button on involvement with horses and tried to get out on my own. So I was making my own money and deciding where I was going to spend it.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people do. So I know that Camellia DuPont comes up in your backstory somewhere. Tell us how you got to that point.
That's a long story.
Is it?
We'll make it shorter.
I'm fascinated by this. So yeah, make a short one.
So about this time in the 70s and the 80s, I started getting involved with racehorses and becoming a big racehorse fan. At the same time, I moved to Los Angeles from Milwaukee. I accidentally started living near the Los Angeles Equestrian Center. And I drove by it every day on a regular basis. And one afternoon, I just remembered, how important that one day was to me, riding that horse in a hunter jumper barn, 10 years before. So instead of driving past the LA Equestrian Center, I drove in. And only within minutes, I had bought a lesson package, and I was off to the tack store trying on boots and helmets. It was really a great day.
What were you doing at the time that you could afford horses now in your life suddenly?
Good question. I was the general salesman, one of the general sales managers at Universal City Nissan in Los Angeles. So my mother used to say horses were God's way of telling me I was making too much money.
That's great. Good job, Mom. So they set you back, but you weren't deterred.
No. I was probably spending every spare dime I had on horseback riding lessons, and I was competing in little school shows, and it was just a really great experience. So how do I get to there from there to Camellia DuPont? Well, I'll backtrack a little. In 1982, I got my formal introduction to horse racing through a friend of mine whose family owned a pretty accomplished racehorse. And in July, we went to Hollywood Park to the races. That was my first exposure to thoroughbred racing. I was fascinated by the color, the pageantry, the excitement that went into every race. And it wasn't long after that I dove into the deep end of the pool. I began buying and buying racehorses and breeding stock and getting more and more involved. Very, very early on, we had some great success. We won our first start with our first starter down at Aguacalia.
Wow. Yeah.
That was a fun story. We had bought this horse off the farm where we raised our horses, and one of the reasons we bought him because he had buddied up with one of the horses we owned. So we asked if he was for sale, and they sold him to us. So he was our first starter and our first winner. We won our first start, and I remember walking down to the winner's circle, thinking I had two thoughts on my mind. One was that there were two types of people in the world: those who had won a thoroughbred race, and those who hadn't. I thought it was such an interesting, exhilarating, individual experience. It was just mind blowing. And the second thought I had was, we just bought this horse for $5,000 and won back all our money in the first start.
Yeah.
We got to get back to Circle H and buy the rest of those horses.
So you were hooked.
I was hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had the early success with our first crop of horses, but more importantly, a horse came out of that crop. He wasn't much of a racehorse. He had chronic injuries, but he was a big, good-looking horse. That's the horse I sent you the pictures of.
Oh yeah, I'll post that. Yeah.
Everyone would tap me on the shoulder when they saw him go and say, "This would be a great dressage horse." I had no idea what dressage was. I mean, literally, I'd never heard the word before. And so I started asking around, and people told me, if you're going to have a dressage horse, you want Camilo Dupont as your trainer.
Of course.
So I had brought the horse up to the Los Angeles Equestrian Center. I was working with a trainer there, just doing walk, trot, and canter with him. And I got a hold of Camila, and she came down and saw the horse, and she was duly impressed by the horse. He was really a natural good mover. The lateral work was second nature to him. He was kind of a slender horse, and everything came easy to him. So that's how I got involved with Camila. But I can't stress enough how my relationship with her really. I still rely on the things she taught me about horsemanship and how to interact with horses and how horses think. She taught me, just the basics. She taught me how to ground drive a horse. And I spent an inordinate amount of time on the lunge line with no reins and no stirrups. So I do have some bad memories too. That's a joke.
No, yeah, well, it's work. So that's interesting though that she had you do your groundwork exercises early on too. Yeah,
she's the bee's knees. She figures out what you need and that's what you get, and that's what you do. But at this time, horses. This was the early '90s, and horses absolutely dominated my existence. And as I became more successful and started getting promoted at work, I had more money to spend. I got involved with a trainer at Santa Anita by the name of Mike Machowski. He came up through the ranks. He was assistant to Richard Mandela, so he was pretty smart kid and had a really good eye for horses. So he put together partnerships where we bought 3 horses privately from an agent in Florida, and those 3 horses, 2 of them were stakes winners, and the other one was a really strong allowance winner. So I was enjoying a lot of success in the thoroughbred business.
That's pretty fun. So how much time did you spend out at the racetrack? Did you get to watch morning works and do all that, or were just funding this project?
That's a great question, because I was having so much fun. I took some time off of work and did both. So a typical day would be going to Santa Anita, watch morning works, have breakfast on the tarmac, go up and visit with the trainers, and then just get in the car and go right to Middle Ranch. And there was always plenty to ride at Middle Ranch. Camille always had a horse to cool out, so if I wasn't taking a lesson, I could just get on one of her horses and cool it, just walk him around for half an hour.
Yeah.
So it, like I said, it just dominated my existence.
Yeah, very fun. So I love that you have this love history with horses and that you did care for them. So we noticed there were initials after your name. How did you decide to become a veterinarian? It
had always been in the back of my mind. As soon as I started racing horses, as soon as I started owning horses and working with horses, I learned that they had physical problems and pathologies and were in need of veterinary care. And some of my vet bills spoke to that fact. And
yeah.
And it's an interesting transition, because I was I left the auto dealer and I was working for a software company, and I was in. I thought I was in my late 30s, early 40s, and I thought I'd really like to explore going to veterinary school. I think it would be an unbelievable experience and something that I always wanted to do. And it was pretty counterintuitive to the way I went through high school, because when I went through high school and college, I absolutely avoided science classes, probably out of fear. But as I started getting involved with the horses and their little problems, I started to realize what a wonderful excursion it would be to get back into the sciences and really grasp the knowledge of the ages.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's interesting.
And a coincidence, I was in Ithaca, New York, and I went to a 7-Eleven, and I saw a sign in the window that said, "Open house at the veterinary school at Cornell." So I called my secretary and told her I wouldn't be back for the weekend. And I went, and I met the director of admissions, and I said, "Look, I'm 42. I don't know if this is going to work." He told me that they had a 54-year-old freshman that year who was an ex-Navy SEAL. Now, I wasn't an ex-Navy SEAL, but I still wanted to be an older student. So
yeah.
I just started formulating the plans to gradually quit my job, and started to learn how to apply for vet school. And interestingly enough, avoiding all the sciences really came back to haunt me, because I had to go back to school and learn algebra, and had to take biology, chemistry, and all the basic classes, all the requirements to apply to veterinary school.
Wow, you were determined. You were determined, huh?
An ancillary story to that is when I went in to see one of the counselors at Cal. I went to Cal Poly Pomona, by the way.
Oh yeah.
And I went to see one of the counselors, and I had mapped out the next 2 years. I said, if I can do this all in 2 years, I could take these biochemistry courses, physics courses, all the other requirements. I said, I can get it done in 2 years. And he looked at me across the desk. He goes, "Don't even attempt it. It's too much work."
Uh-huh.
There were 33 courses, and I'm going to brag a little bit here.
Please do. It's just you and me.
After I completed the work, I went and saw him and showed him my transcript. I said, "Look, I took 33 courses and got 32 A's. So don't ever tell anybody not to try it."
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah.
It was a real great victory, but it took a lot of discipline. Like I had a real great schedule. I gave myself every Friday night off. So I literally went to the movies every Friday night to clear my brain. And then if I wanted to go to the races at Hollywood Park or Santa Anita, I would just get a box and bring my books with me.
Yeah.
And it was really.
You ended up going to Cornell, though, yeah?
No. Oh. I ended up going to Penn.
Oh, that's right. I did see that. Yeah.
I wanted to go to Cornell, but I couldn't finish the requirements fast enough.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to apply.
Yeah. Well, good school though. So now you've become a vet. And what was your experience in vet school? Like, you know about horses, but what did you know about horsemanship?
That's a great question, because I thought I knew a lot, but the more you think you know, the less you know.
Mm.
And when I got to the New Bolton Center, it was an interesting experience, because I was the guy from the thoroughbred world.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me all the thoroughbreds because they thought they were crazy. It turns out that the thoroughbreds are better trained than the sport horses. They know how to pick up a foot to get it clean. They know they anticipate your movement around the stall, and the sport horses are kind of just run all over you looking for peppermints.
Well, it could be a difference in the owners too. Yeah.
No, true. But it was it's an interesting question, because the professors there, they're surgeons and sonographers and specialists, and a lot of them don't ever really even handle horses.
Right.
So the bell curve of horse handling experience is sometimes a little brutal.
Mm.
But
I
just try to remember everything I learned, from the LA Equestrian Center. The LA Equestrian Center has a really good program where if you take lessons, they have little Saturday afternoon get-togethers where you learn to pick hooves and just
actually care for a horse. Yeah, exactly. Which is what I wonder about a lot of the students going in, the large animals, flight animals and large animals, I don't know how much experience, even the professors, I was thinking the students, but even the professors have with large horses. So were you able to carry some of that, the LA Ag Center knowledge over to them too, or is that something that just made school easier for you?
Oh, I was able to carry that knowledge and the knowledge I picked up from Camila to navigate my way through the barns. Mm-hmm. And you got to remember, out of 120 vet students in a class, only a handful of them are equine majors.
I see. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time, assisting and trying to impart any small knowledge I had.
That's nice.
The
nice for the horses. Nice for the horses that some students can come out with some more knowledge like that too. Let's get into your vet work a little bit. I mean, some of the vet work, thinking about how you were going to learn this with horses, is pretty invasive. I mean, it's, it can be asking a lot of a horse. How do you approach a horse? And so now you've worked as a vet for a while, or you're learning to work in different ways with horses, treating them. How do you keep a horse calm?
That's a great question, and indeed there are a lot of really invasive procedures we do. I approach it with two major fields of behavior. One is trying to build trust with the animal, and one is communicating with the animal. And I've formulated through experience, my own experience of working with horses. I've tried to figure out what the Holy Grail is. And most of my success comes from the fact that I try to understand the interaction between me and the horse from the horse's perspective. Like, here comes the vet. How does this horse perceive me, friend or foe? Mm-hmm. And we got to make certain that it's the former, not the latter.
Yeah.
I have a theory about horses and how they interact with humans. I don't believe if I get in a stall with a groom, a horse, and myself, and I'm about to perform a procedure, I have to think about what that horse is thinking. And I don't think the horse thinks that there's a groom, there's a horse, and there's a veterinarian. I think the horse looks at it as there's three beings. There's three living beings in this stall. And are they my friends or are they my foes? Do I have to? Am I going to acquiesce, or am I going to fly? Or am I going to choose to resist?
And how are they sizing you up that way? How do they determine that, do you think?
I think, let me backtrack just a little bit. When I approach a stall, when I approach a horse, I usually like to wait for the horse to come to the stall to try to figure out who's here, why is he here? And most of the horses want to interact with you because they're so bored from standing in a stall all day. So the first thing I do is I make eye contact. A lot of people don't believe me when I tell them this, but if you make eye contact with the horse, you're on the same wavelength as he is. Another thing I like to do is I like to really rely on the grooms to keep the horse calm, because the groom is the key to success. And if I set up every time by just leaning my right shoulder into the near side of the horse, into the left shoulder of the horse, make eye contact all the time, stay as calm as I can, maybe pet the jugular, maybe pet the neck, just to know that I'm not a predator. I'm not the saber-toothed tiger that's ready to rip his neck out.
His jugular, yeah, that's right. That's right. And do you like to keep that? So you probably know your grooms when you go down a shed row. Do you kind of get to know those guys? Yeah.
And working at Arlington Park, there's a really good set of grooms, and they've been at it for 30 years, some of them. And they know their animals, they know their horses. And so I tried to learn. I learned in Spanish a very important phrase, and that's I just walk into the stall and I tell them "dos manos en el martigón," which means put two hands on the halter. And so if the horse has the groom in there and he's got you in there, you're pretty much outnumbered. And if everything stays calm, the horse doesn't know that he's getting the shot. He doesn't know that he's being worked on rather than the groom. He just knows that there's three beings in the horse, and they're all acting independently, but at the same time they're coexisting. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, it does. The grooms are there. Anybody who's been to a racetrack knows that the grooms are pretty much the omnipresence. How often do you see owners come over while you're there?
Very rarely. A lot of the owners are out of state. A lot of horses come up from Kentucky. A lot of the trainers try to schedule their workouts, their morning workouts for the weekend, so the owners can come on their days off. So a lot of owners show up every Saturday morning, every Sunday morning. Usually they bring treats with them and coffee, but even then it's rare that you interact with them on a professional level. A lot of them will try to corner you and figure out, try to ask you questions that they don't want to ask you in front of the trainer.
Oh, is that right? About assessing their health or about their performance, or what do they ask you?
Their performance, their health, their happiness, their weight gain or weight loss. There's also a big bell curve with owners. There's some pretty intelligent owners, owners that get involved with their horse and like to know about the vet work they're receiving and the care they're getting from the grooms, the trainers, and the vets.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
A lot of people you'll never see and you'll never speak to, but you send them the bill and they send you a check. So.
Yeah, exactly. So the life of a vet at the racetrack is pretty different than your country vet entirely, really.
I've done very little country work in my career, but yeah, most of the time you're dealing with an equine athlete. You're like the team trainer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're keeping an eye on their well-being, on their soundness, on their whether they're in a positive or negative energy balance. You get to know your patients, you get to know your trainers, and
do you feel like you have control over their health as much as you'd like, or you're just another one of the hands in there?
It depends on the trainer. A lot of trainers rely on you. A lot of trainers will ignore you. Mm-hmm. And when we talked before, I talked about the enemies of the racehorse, and greed and ignorance are two big enemies, and another one is misinformation. So a lot of the owners are kept in the dark about what's going on.
Yeah, like the owners of a team, but they're not down in the trenches with the horses. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. A lot of times they don't have an interest. They want to know when their horse is running. They want to know when their horse is breezing, and they want to know why they did win or why they didn't. So. But most owners are pretty responsible. But it's just a matter of how much they want to get involved.
Yeah, I can't imagine owning these beautiful creatures and not wanting to get involved, but there I am. Some people are more in for a sport, and some people are more in it for the love of horses. And we're really glad that you're in it for the love of horses. I would want you as my vet at the track, but I don't know how many owners actually get to even choose that. Do you get chosen or hired by the trainer more often, or the owner?
It's probably about 95% you're hired by the trainer. But you do have owners that will ask for you,
nice,
or wonder where you're working to go into that practice. When I was at Arlington, I'd have trainers come to me and say, "I want you to do my work," and I say, and I worked for a practice, and I say, "You can't hire me; you have to hire the practice." So we were a pretty dominant practice at Arlington for a long time.
So I got to ask when I have you on here now, because you're working the back side of the track and you get all kinds of fun stories. Do any trainers, you don't even have to name them, have any particular idiosyncrasies that are part of their daily routine, something that we would never expect? Fun thing.
There's a lot of fun stories. Like if a horse wins in one pair of silks, you got to put that same pair of silks on him next time, or
can't even wash them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll tell you one of the funniest stories, and I've kind of got to be humble about this. I had one of my best friends who trains horses. He's a really, really smart guy, really fun guy to work for. And he had a filly that came out of a race, and she had probably a 8-inch wound on the front of her cannon bone. So I was called to work on it, and for some reason I decided to staple it. And 98% of the time I suture a wound. I put stitches in it.
Yeah, especially in the cannon bone. Yeah. Yeah.
I never use a stapler, but I decided, you know what? I'm going to staple this. And admittedly, I'm better at suturing than stapling.
Okay.
So I thought that day, let me staple this horse. I need a little experience stapling. So I put about 20 staples in this horse, and it looks great. And then I go back 2 weeks later to take him out, and it goes pretty uneventfully. And a year later, he ships into Arlington, and this filly ships in, and I'm telling you, it's been 1 year since I stapled her.
Yeah.
He calls me up and he says, "Hey, Chris, I think you left a staple in." And I'm thinking, no way. That was a year ago. There couldn't be a staple in her. I said, he must be dreaming. So I drove up and I drive up to the barn and she's in the wash rack and the sun is shining and I look over and I can see the glint from the sun.
Oh, that's awful.
I can see the staple from about 30 paces. I can see the staple. And I go, geez, you're right. I can't believe I left a staple. I said, it's my bad. I'm sorry about that. I said, I'll take it out right now. And he goes, don't you touch it.
It's good luck. No.
I said, what do you mean? He looks at me, he goes, she's won 5 races with that staple. It ain't coming out.
That is awful. Is that why the groom left it? I'm thinking, why isn't the groom finding the staple, poor thing? So you don't think she was uncomfortable in that then? Apparently not.
No, it's just
5 races.
Just a piece of metal in her skin.
That's a tough one.
Well, a lot of times, I'll tell you, since I was second career veterinarian, you know, I went back to school when I was 42. I started vet school when I was 44. And I graduated when I was 48. And anybody who knows anybody who wants to do something second career always refers me. And I hark back to a passage I read in Charlie Whittingham's biography, where a young, not so young person said he was thinking of going to vet school. And Charlie Whittingham asked him, well, why aren't you going? And he said, well, I'm going to be in my 40s when I graduate. And Charlie Whittingham says back to him, he goes, you're going to be in your 40s anyway.
That's right. That's right. And that sounds so young now, doesn't it?
Yeah, now that I'm in my 60s.
Yeah, exactly. Well, congratulations. I am glad you took the plunge, and horses are glad you took the plunge. And it's just fascinating to hear a little backstory on an industry I don't get to hear much from. So I'm really glad. It gives me hope that there are good people and good horse lovers, even in the backside of the track.
Great to talk with you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Chris.
Whisper the language of the herd. Listen, you don't have to say a word.
It's time for Jamie Jennings to fetch an email from Monty Roberts' inbox and share a morsel of Monty's wisdom in a little segment we like to call Ask Monty.
Leave this world a better place than mine. The magic in the language of the herd.
Dear Monty, I have a 36-year-old stallion, and for 3 years I have had a problem with him. Every time I walk my horse with a halter only to a venue to work with him, he just stands still on the road or in front of the door. I have the feeling he does not respect me. When my teacher, who has helped me learn to ride the horse, walks behind the two of us, he just walks in the indoor school hall right away. But if my friend does the same and urges him to move, my horse only makes one step. He does not only threaten to kick people, he does it. My friend has had an accident with this horse already. Could you please help? Monty's answer. At 36 years of age, this horse is by most accepted standards well into his 90s in human terms. No matter how difficult great-grandfather seems to be, the family generally doesn't discuss ways to retrain him. There comes a time for every person and every horse when responsibilities are a thing of the past, and retirement is well earned in our 90s. I would do this old horse no favor if I started discussing ways to improve his behavior. Green grass, fresh water, and a loving person to groom and care for him is what this old fellow needs at this time, and all I would recommend for him. When you have a similar problem with a horse of an age more reasonable for training, then you will find me recommending my Dually halter.
For more of these insights into good horsemanship, go to www.montyroberts.com and click on the orange banner that says Get Free Horse Tips.
Hi, I'm Monty Roberts, and I'm dedicated to training horses without pain. You can learn to do it too on my Equus Online University. Western, English, the beginner, or the advanced rider. It doesn't matter. You can connect with other students online too, on our forum, and there's a new lesson every week. It's a lifetime of learning for you on my Equus Online University at MontyRoberts.com.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
Where in the world is Monty Roberts?
Monty is looking forward to meeting some new friends, two-legged and four-legged, May 25th at the Night of Inspiration at Flag Is Up Farms in Solvang, California. And July 22 through 26 is Monty Special Training in Portuguese, so we call that Monty Special Training Brazil in California. July 29 to August 2nd is another Monty Special Training in Anglais, in English. So that is the one that we've had since 2006. It's a lot of fun, and it's really intense on learning the horses and everything. You're an auditor. You're watching Monty work the whole week through, and it's just one of the more beautiful courses we teach all year. And August 5th through 16, 2 weeks, is the Gentling Wild Horses course, also at Flag Is Up Farms in California.
Stays busy there year-round.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And you can find out that and so much more at MontyRoberts.com, or you can give them a call there at Flag Is Up Farms. The phone number is 805-688-6288. For details about today's show, that would be episode 135, you can go to horsemanshipradio.com, and there you're going to find links on today's guests and topics, pictures, and more information. And one of the ways that we help make this show fun and interesting is from your feedback. We want to hear from you. What did you think about this show, the last show, the next show? You can do that on Facebook. Monty Roberts is the page. Look for the one with the little blue check mark. That's the official Monty Roberts Facebook page. You can also follow Monty on Twitter if you want to live your life 150 characters at a time. And his handle there is Monty_Roberts. And it is the same on Instagram if you are more photographic in nature.
Yes. Visual.
If you're more visual, if you're a visual communicator, and get the Horse Radio Network app and get it for your friends. It's the easiest way to listen to all the shows on the Horse Radio Network. It's available for iPhones and Androids. Just go to your app store, search Horse Radio Network, and download it. It's free and easy. And for the less tech savvy folks in your life, help them do it too. They'll thank you later.
And many thanks to our sponsors, too, Omega Fields, which we have just spent the movement time with. It was a lot of fun with Sean out there. So it's Omega Fields is our title sponsor. Cavallo, Horse and Rider. Love Greg and Carol, having so much fun with them. And Monty Roberts University. That is just our legacy piece. We have so much fun putting that together for everybody every week. So thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen. And be sure to visit all the other great shows, too, on the Horse Radio Network at www.horseradionetwork.
You know, the normal
part,
number of
and
W's,
horseradionetwork.com. Go there. Until next time, have many happy horse hours.